All right, so we have the Steam frame that has been announced by Valve, and I'm pretty excited about this headset, but also a little disappointed at the same time. First of all, we've got LCD displays. I was really hoping for OLED or at least some kind of, QLED with some dimming, local dimming zones, but we don't have that here. We've got just regular non-dimming LCD screens, and the resolution is also not very impressive. It's at 2160 by 2160, so a little above the Quest 3. They're pretty much the same panels as the Pico 4. I believe the Pico 4 also has the same resolution, so they're probably using the same panels, I would imagine, but not very impressed with the panels. I am quite disappointed. They're going to be sharp enough. They're going to be obviously good enough like the Quest 3 is. And we've got, the pancake lenses as well. And these pancake lenses, if you've seen some videos of people showing this headset up close to the camera, are actually really large. The pancake lenses themselves look very, very large, very similar to the size of the pancake lenses in the upcoming Micro OLED headset that's coming out. So they're really emphasizing the field of view with these pancakes. That is one thing that is usually not very good with pancake lenses, is the field of view is usually a little bit more narrow. If you look at the Apple Vision Pro and the Samsung XR headset that just came out and other Micro OLED headsets that have come out recently, that is typically the thing that you see with these Micro OLED and pancake lens combos, is that the field of view is pretty narrow, but Valve is touting that this is going to provide up to 110 degrees of field of view, which is very impressive. That is the same type of field of view that the PSVR 2 provides. And to be perfectly honest, I'm actually pretty happy with that amount of field of view. That is also the same or around the same field of view that the Pimax Crystal Light is given out. And I'm also pretty happy with that amount of field of view as well. So if we can get 110 degrees, like an actual 110 degrees out of this headset with pancake lenses and that edge-to-edge clarity, I think that's going to be a pretty big win, because the one thing with the Quest 3 is that we don't have a very good field of view. In fact, I have to use my Quest 3 without a facial interface. I literally take off the facial interface and just use it with a halo strap as close to my face as possible, because if I use a facial interface with the Quest 3, the field of view is very binocular. Another big benefit over the Quest 3 is that everything comes in a box. You've got a comfortable head strap. You've got also the wireless streaming all built in. So you've got a little dongle that you can plug into your PC, and it is dedicated only to be used with your Steam frame. Unlike the Quest 3, you got to go out there and purchase a separate router or access point that is connected to your Quest 3. I know there is like a special little dongle you can buy for the Quest 3, but that thing has terrible reviews. So what you really have to do realistically for wireless streaming for the Quest 3 is you have to get a good router. You have to make sure all data is on point. It actually took me quite a long time to set it up and to get it working just right. And you got to fiddle around with the settings and all that, with the placement of the router as well, make sure nothing else is connected to it. So there is a lot of setup to that. Or you can use the you can use the USB connection as well, but the official cable is like $80 on top. And also the Quest 3 is not very comfortable. You got to get a separate head strap as well. So out the box, it seems like the Steam frame kind of wins over the Quest 3. Quest 3, you got to get a lot of accessories to make it work for PC streaming, whereas for the Steam frame, looks like everything is optimized for PC VR streaming. And on top of that, you're able to run literally PC VR games on the device itself. You don't have to have a PC. You don't need that. You can run everything locally on the Steam frame. Now, of course, we're not going to be getting the highest resolutions. We're not going to be getting the highest frame rates versus a PC. However, if you're able to run PC VR games at all and have them look good enough, that's just fine. If you've watched any of my previous videos, I've run PCVR using an RX 480. I've personally run PCVR using a 1060 6 GB, and it's all very possible. It's very possible to do that. And honestly, the experience I was having with those graphics cards was better than any standalone game that I played on a Quest 3. So if you can at least run at a half decent frame rate and resolution game standalone on this Steam frame, then you're good to go, because most games on the Quest don't look that great that are optimized for the Quest. And also a big benefit to the Steam frame is that this will give developers more incentive to create better VR experiences. We have the Quest 3, and obviously we saw what that has done to the VR landscape. We've gotten these washed down, watered down games that are obviously not made for the best experience possible when it comes to graphics and immersion, because the developers are trying to develop these games for this mobile headset. But if they were developing for Steam OS, then that just makes it a lot easier to up the graphics, because they could at the same time develop for the Steam frame and also PC VR. So this actually is really good, I believe, for PC VR games. And we also see what Meta is doing to the Quest store, where it prioritizes those kind of free-to-play Gorilla Tag type of games versus actually good VR games like, Metro Awakening and games like that. So me personally, I have a Quest 3. I've got a Pimax Crystal Light at the moment from Pimax as a loan, and I've also got the PSVR 2. And when this thing comes out, I'm definitely going to buy this, even though it still has these LCD panels, because of the convenience that it's going to allow me to play these PCVR games. All right. The reason I still use my Quest 3 so much, even over my Pimax Crystal Light, is because of the convenience of getting into VR games, the wireless streaming. But there is a big, obviously, drawback to that, and that is that you get those compression artifacts. And the Steam frame actually fixes that by having foveated encoding. And what this is, if you don't know, is that they are going to prioritize where you're looking, the streaming quality, versus where you're not looking. So similar to foveated rendering, but for the actual stream that's coming into your eyes. So you've only got like 200, 250 megabits per second to work with, right? Like, for example, my Quest 3, I'm streaming over a virtual desktop, 200 megabits per second, AV1, and that 200 megabits per second has to render that entire field of view, my whole panel, right? So all that bit rate, you can kind of see it, especially with more complex games. When you're moving around, the image breaks down, even with AV1 and 200 megabits per second. But what this does is it prioritizes that encoding to a small spot of where you're looking at, kind of like foveated rendering, but for encoding. And this basically means that 200 or 250 megabits per second is going to be prioritized to where you're looking. And this is going to greatly increase the image quality. Some people that have used the Steam frame have reported that this basically eliminates any bitrate artifacts that they could see. It literally looked like a DisplayPort headset. So if I can get DisplayPort type of quality, but with wireless streaming, that's a big win for me, even if these are LCD screens. And also, this being a dedicated PCVR headset, the optimization for PCVR is going to be a lot greater with the Steam frame than it is with the Quest 3. Because obviously with the Quest 3, Meta does not prioritize PCVR whatsoever. And that is definitely on the back burner when it comes to the Quest 3. They are prioritizing only the standalone aspect of the Quest 3 and 3S. But this Steam frame, this is going to be a PCVR focused headset, whether PCVR standalone or PCVR streaming. This is going to be PCVR focused. So when this thing comes out, I'm going to be first in line to purchase it, and it might actually replace my Quest 3 finally. Not that I hate the Quest 3, but like I said, I'm not the biggest standalone gamer. I do standalone game, But with this Steam frame, and there are exclusive games for the Quest 3, that's a big benefit as well. So maybe I'll keep it just for that. I don't know. But I'm mostly I'm a big PC VR gamer. That's like mostly where I'm at. So for me personally, this is going to be a good headset. Even if the panels are not micro OLED or it doesn't have any local dimming zones or anything like that, convenience wise, just getting into a game, the performance of the wireless streaming itself is going to be a big benefit to me. If I can get into my VR games faster and play them smoother, that's always a big benefit than lugging around a bunch of cables. So those are pretty much my thoughts on the Steam frame. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. I want to hear your opinions as well. Have a great day. Peace out.